Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode number 117 of Storytelling with Seth. This time around, I am joined by Alyson Shelton as we talk about her imaginary badass best friend, Black Widow, and the essay she wrote for Comics Lit Volume 1, as well as some other really great topics of conversation that I won't spoil, and I'll simply step back and let you enjoy. Thank you for joining us. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Storytelling with Seth. It's my genuine pleasure to be joined today by the amazing Alyson Shelton, who has been so kind to have me on already as a guest on her program, Where I'm From, where you have an opportunity to share your reflections on the amazing poem. I have a note quick here George Ella Lyon's
George L.
poem,
Lyon. Yeah.
Where, and it was a wonderful experience for me. I was traveling at the time, so I was set up and did my best despite some audio video difficulties. And I love talking about the ideas that came up when using this poem as a template. And now it's my genuine pleasure to have Alyson on because we are here to talk today about Comics Lit, in which Alyson has this. Oops. Oh, I had that so well planned and it did not work out as well as I wanted, but I
Oh,
am
brilliant.
going to move forward undeterred. My imaginary badass bestie, the Black Widow. And then we've got this really cool image that goes along with it. And Alyson, it's been such a pleasure to build this anthology together and now promote it since it came out on October 2nd. But before we move directly into that, one of the things that I feel that came up so well in your essay is where are all of the badass female characters that we need in comics, in cinema, in television? I mean, it seems like every once in a while there's a breakthrough moment. There's a great character who we go, wow, that was phenomenal. I love the movies like Hannah or Lucy or La Femme Nikita from dating back to the 90s, and
Yeah,
even the TV show, which I couldn't really get into, but
me neither.
the quality wasn't as good. But there are these moments where you think to yourself, this was so rad. And why is it so few and far between? And we can easily point to the fact that there are still mostly white males who are doing this gets approved, this doesn't. And that seems to be, the biggest hurdle right now. But when these movies do have a chance, they succeed. They
Well,
become
mixed
a
results, I will say,
ah
Seth. I mean, I
okay.
appreciate your enthusiasm and your positivity, but I mean, I think we can say Captain Marvel underperformed, and I think Black Widow also underperformed. Even though I think Black Widow is a great movie, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's not really appreciated. But the a lot of the fans were against those films before they were even released, and I feel like it's a small segment of the fandom that is vocally against those films, particularly Captain Marvel. I mean, that was a real like people were going were gunning for that film really quick early on with Brie Larson's casting. But um I well, did you finish your point? But I just wanted before you like said they were well received. I mean, it's mixed. The Marvels tanked.
Fair enough. I loved them. I thought they were beautiful movies. I enjoyed them a great deal. I So to me, that's success. And I'm
Yeah,
going from my
yeah.
perspective, which was I think it was a success. I can watch those movies happily again and
Mhm.
again and find new things to love. I loved all the Wonder Woman movies. I don't care. I love the
Yeah.
Wonder Woman series, which you reference in your essay. I love Linda Carter. I love the music. I love the
Mhm.
spinning and changing into outfits. And I probably got a decent amount of grief for that. And I didn't care because it was cool. The music was cool. The song was cool. All
Yeah.
of it was cool. And that worked. And I think you do bring up some interesting things that at the moment I was speaking, I didn't pay attention to. But now that I was reminded when you talked about Black Widow not being as successful, Black Widow actually was one of those that um, it public issues that arose regarding Disney, not sure if they were going to release it in the theaters. It was caught up in the trials of the pandemic. It even led to some contentious back and forth between Disney and the lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, I love the moment when they said, well, we think you need to be respectful of the, you know, the current financial situation that's affecting consumers. And her response was, well, I don't understand where you think you're coming from. And I think you're, you know, trying to, you know, shame me publicly by saying I shouldn't be caring about the money when that's exactly what you're doing. And that's the basis for your argument. And it led to some really, I think, important conversations outside of that. But the example you point with Captain Marvel, yes, financially did underperform.
Well, I mean, and
Unfortunately,
we can
Black
get
Widow
into
was
why we
just a
think
mistake.
those films did underperform, aside from the fact that they were women. I mean, on Comics in Motion, I was a part of the Miss Marvel conversation when we were like doing, you know, episode by episode of that show, and I felt like she was, um, I felt like that show didn't give her the opportunity to shine that she deserved, because Miss Marvel is a great character, and I think you could see it with She-Hulk, you can see it with Captain Marvel, and with Black Widow. Like, I mean, we still complain that they killed Black Widow in the MCU because she was one of the only female characters of consequence in the MCU, and they killed her. Um, and why? Didn't need to be her. You had plenty of other options. It could have been Jeremy Renner. That would have been okay. We could have
I
said
think
goodbye to Hawkeye and, you know, had the new Hawkeye.
I agree. It would have been fairly easy to accomplish, and there has been no
Really easy.
true justification, right? There has been no true justification for why it had to be Black Widow. You know, what was the importance of killing off her character? Was the actor no longer interested in portraying the character? Is there some, you know, factor that we need to, you know, that was hidden from us? But I don't think it was. I think that they saw that this was an easy, in their minds, choice to make for whatever reasons they determined that to be an easy choice, or they simply had reasons that they chose not to disclose to us. It also made the movie harder to get into because you're going back in history to a time where the
Yes, for
character
sure.
was still alive,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, that's kind
And
of what I'm talking about. Each one is problematic in its own way. Captain Marvel is problematic because she's just super powerful all the time and has no issues. Like, that's not very compelling, um, at all, regardless if you're a male or female. And then the Black Widow film was a prequel after she died.
right.
I was like, what? Why? There were
And the
just so
grief
many
with
missteps with the female characters in the MCU. I mean, not that we're just here to talk about the MCU, but we are talking about Black Widow, and I think that's most people's relationship to Natasha. Although that's not my primary relationship to Natasha Romanoff, but I think for most people, that's what they think of.
I'm happy to use that as a segue into the fact that, you know, your essay deals with your relationship with Black Widow. You
Mhm.
know, I think it's important that there needs to be an understanding for how many fans of comics she can be a great entry point. If you're looking at just how few female badass, as your title, you know, says so clearly, characters that can be enjoyed, who demonstrate that they have the ability to succeed in a room where they're surrounded by these superpowered, overconfident men, and that she can use so many great strengths to her advantage as well as ply on their weaknesses. It would seem like that should be compelling enough to make great film, if not television shows. Have this be a character who should succeed, would succeed if there was enough attention paid to. Um, with that in mind, you know, I'd love to hear the things that, you know, you mentioned in your essay that brought you to enjoy Black Widow, why she was someone that you were able to write such a great essay about. And I think in the process, we might be able to share some of these things that were overlooked or undervalued when it came to her role in the MCU, her movie, and the fact that I think she could have had so many more afterwards if they didn't
Agreed.
kill off the character. You mentioned that prior to, say, the 2000s, comics were not really on your radar. They
Yeah,
were,
for sure. For sure. I was
and
like, you go ahead. What were you gonna say, Seth?
oh no, just from that point, how did they come on your radar? I know you mentioned the
Yeah,
essay, but this is an opportunity for you
sure.
to,
So I started dating my now husband, and we were in grad school for film and television at the time, and he really loved comics. And I still, as I think a lot of people, felt like comics were for like nerds or, man children, like not for mainstream consumption. It wasn't like it is now, like where where pop culture is populated with comic book characters. Like it wasn't like that. Sure, there was Batman, sure, there was Wonder Woman and Superman. It was really DC, to be honest. Like I had very little awareness of Marvel, very little. Like I'm trying to think if I even knew any Marvel characters. I don't really think I did. And he was like X-Men. I'm like, I don't really know what you're talking about. Like I don't what? So he oh, Spider-Man. Spider-Man. I knew there had to be one, Spider-Man. Um, but he could, confide. I mean, it was like confiding in me that he liked comics because it wasn't something people just talked about. And I was like, okay, I like this guy. We share a lot of the same like creative DNA. Okay, what do you like? Like, what should I read? Because also, I think this is still true. Actually, if you're interested in reading comics, like, where do you start? Like, where would you like point someone as a place to start? I would say Kelly Thompson's run on Black Widow. I would very easily like say start there. If you don't fall in love with Black Widow in that run, she's probably not your thing. So let's try something else. Or I guess like Saga, but I think it's hard to jump into Saga now. But
true.
so um I really thought about it, like, okay, I'm not going to get a chance to introduce her to comics probably more than once. So he suggested Why the Last Man and Alias, the Brian Michael Bendis comic Alias about Jessica Jones. And I loved both of them. And Alias was such a good pick for me because Gatos was also doing the art and it's gorgeous. And so I would have probably loved it even if I didn't love the story, I would have loved the art. And I fell in love with the worlds and the characters in both of those books. And it was actually a really interesting entry point into Marvel, Alias, because I mean, Luke Cage was probably the most famous character in that book. And I mean, Luke Cage is not, I wouldn't say he's A-list Marvel. To the average reader. He's showed up, but not in the MCU. So we read those books and we talked about it. And then, I started reading X-Men and Spider-Man and like all these, and we would try to read Wonder Woman and we tried different runs of Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman is so hard. I love her, Linda Carter, and then that first Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot. Those were the two that like captured. I remember sitting in the theater when Wonder Woman steps out of that like trench and like starts walking towards the enemy lines, and it was like I had chills all over. It was like, oh, this is the Wonder Woman that I have always imagined and never seen anywhere. And the fact that like they tried so little with Wonder Woman, I mean, compared to all the like super iterations of Superman and Batman we've gotten over the years, um, Wonder Woman is a great character. She's hard, but so is Superman. And people just kind of like give up on her, I think, because she's so tricky.
It is a challenge, I think, for people to connect with this idea of Themyscira,
Yeah.
of the Amazon culture, the ideals that come with it. And I remember when I first saw the movie, it was in the theater, and I was really blown away by the powerful moment where she was in such conflict with what she was seeing on the streets, with the way people were treating each other, with the level of disrespect, that there was no honor, and it's something that, unfortunately, as many of us come into it, even teenage years and adulthood, even I think younger years, it's impressed upon us, and it's something that we um, grow to understand and accept, right? It's not like we really have a lot of choice when it comes to how someone in a position above us treats us. There was always this sense of, well, that's just how it is.
Mhm.
There's simply, and to see a character struggle with that, I think is hard for a lot of people to go back to the moment when they
Mhm.
had to come to the terms with that realization, because it's hard. It's not something that we like to probably think about, because it's the moment we start giving up our own autonomy in service or subject to someone else. We're told you're going to get a job where you have to do things you don't want and listen to people you don't want to listen to, or deal with things that you disagree with. And if you want to get paid, you don't argue, you don't complain, you follow the rules, or you get in line to some degree. And I loved, as you point out, Wonder Woman doesn't. She also proves herself on the battlefield. She's such, you know, for me, it was so much fun to see, because it was stuff that I always loved about her in the comics, and that I
Mhm.
remember, like, there was a '90s series called War of the Gods where she went through a really fun evolution for me, and I really enjoyed sort of learning just about the trials and tribulations, and more recently with stuff like Historia. But
Mhm.
as you point out, one of the other conflicts is she's so powerful.
Mhm.
Like, it's between the lasso of truth, the bullet blocking armbands or gauntlets,
Mhm.
the headband, the tiara, which I remember from the TV show, which was like a boomerang. These are things that are not at easy disposal for anyone who's trying to join it. Like, wow, yeah, I could just pick those up somewhere at the local drugstore. Now, with Natasha, what we do have is someone who doesn't have all those superpowers,
Right.
but has taken what she has and trained it to such an elite level
Mhm.
that she understands not only what physical power she has, but also how to put pressure points against those she's in opposition to, or those she needs to leverage, and use those to her advantage. I mean, she's very aware of her sexuality. She owns it in a way where she's so comfortable with it. Those she interacts with who aren't, that's a weakness for her. I thought she had a great first appearance in Avengers, where she's like, hold on, I've got a phone call. Look, this guy's just giving me everything. Well, I'm not
Mhm.
giving you everything. No, you're giving me everything. Just shush, I'm talking right now. Like, she's fully aware of the fact that up until that moment she's presenting herself as weak, and then she takes everyone out, picks up her shoes, walks off. Like, this is just what I do. And that was a wonderful introduction, I felt. But what she offers is that idea that, someone who was born into very little and had to fight so hard to establish who she is, and become a person of consequence in a room where she's constantly being undervalued. Or, I think you allude well to this idea of being a form of desire, someone that people imagine themselves with intimately, or dream or fantasize to a degree. And for her, she's just like, keep thinking about that, because I'm doing things on a higher intellect than your base natures are. And I'm going to leverage that against you. I'm going to then, if need be, overpower you, through my fighting prowess. And those ideals are something that I feel come closer to a reality that others can aspire to, at least, that they can recognize where
Yeah.
someone else will view them a certain way, or underestimate them, and say, there's a lesson to be learned here. Let me show you how I can use that weakness on your part and come out on top. I think, as you point out really well, there's always that character who underestimates her, no matter what's
Oh, it's
occurring, either a fight or
yes.
something
It's like
else.
they've never
Right.
read an issue of Black Widow before. It's like, oh, this
Right.
woman, she is so easily defeated. That's in the earlier ones. When she has no backstory and she's just, an evil Russian temptress. She's not even a redhead necessarily all the time. Um,
Right.
but yeah, it's pretty reliably that way, and, she has a lot of patience, and then she eventually realizes she can use it to her advantage, like, "Yes, please underestimate me, please assume you can beat me because I'm a woman," and then later she becomes more famous or notorious or infamous then they think, well, I'm going to be the one to defeat Black Widow. Like once they have accepted that she is a person of consequence, then it's like, well, I'm going to be the one who finally defeats her. So it's fun to watch her make people beg for mercy. It never gets old.
Well, and I think that's a great reminder, of one of the reasons why, despite what happened to her in the MCU, the character has lived on in the comics for as long as she has, and I believe will always have, a great future, because there are so many powerful stories that she can continue to tell. Because unfortunately, being underestimated, being viewed in only one category or through one lens is something that she will always be able to use to her advantage. I do think you brought up a great point that, once she reached a certain level of prowess, then it was like targets on her back. Well, everyone's got to prove that they can beat her. And they've yet to do so. And that's been to, her continued benefit. It's like, oh, wow, now you want to think that you're prepared for me. Guess what? You're not, because I'm always preparing for that too. I'm always expecting that there's someone like you who thinks they can come along and knock me down, knock me out, take me out. And when you train for enough, I think of the old Bruce Lee analogy where he would be like, yeah, I got this machine with 3 fists. And they're like, what's the third one for? That's the unexpected. If you're always training for the unexpected, right, you're ready for more. And I think that's her. She knows she's always going to face these adversities, and because of that, she's always training for them, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, whether it's an ability to read her opponent or the room or any scenario. I think that level of analysis and strategy is something I would enjoy seeing continue in her stories. What was it like tackling, this project? We each had the opportunity through the invitation from Tony and Tanya to come into this. Was Black Widow just the moment this project idea was suggested? Was it like, oh yeah, Black Widow, snap, now I just need to do some research and I've got it? Was she always the easy choice?
Well, I knew I wanted to write about a woman. So either a woman creator or a woman character. And so that limits your options quite considerably. And I thought about writing about Jessica Jones, but she doesn't really have literary antecedents, and neither does Black Widow. So then I sort of started to think about Black Widow. I started reading through the omnibus and reading all of that, and I pitched to them like, okay, well, here's my idea. She doesn't have literary antecedents, but she does have this sort of Matahari, like historical Red Scare. She's a product of that time, which a lot of characters in the comics do, right? Red Scare was a huge time for comics, and lots of characters were created during that time. And so I was like, well, I think this is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in Black Widow. I'm interested in what she means to me, and that she's grounded in a historical place. And I don't know if that's enough, but if it is, and so they said yes. I think because I primarily write as personal essays. Like that's one of the things that I do, write personal essays about media or my own experiences, or so that was in my wheelhouse, where I'm not there are a bunch of teacher professor types in the essay collection. I'm not one of those. I'm just a writer type. So it was like, okay, how about this? And it was for me, it was fun thinking about what she means to me. I also enjoyed sort of sinking into like my teeth into all the different iterations she's had in history, and thinking about how criminally underused she is, and that she has rarely had her own book. And even though it didn't happen obviously until decades after her creation, but she has an amazing backstory that was so well crafted that it really like makes her whole being and her way of living life make sense. And I think because of the MCU, we all know about the Red Room and her training and all of that, but that was like pretty awesome when it first came out. And she has a lot of like the standalone series that she does have. And they're, I mean, not every single one of them is amazing, but most of them are pretty great. Um, I mean, I find her really compelling as a character, and I think, like you said, she is relatable in a way because she's just human. She's not a god, and not none of us are ever going to be as lethal as she is. But I think the theme of transmutation of trauma into power is something I think we all hope for ourselves or wish for ourselves, and I think she's that.
That was a beautiful summation. I would love to say that I can, oh yeah, I can expound it. No, I really, really can't, because you've touched on some beautiful points and some keys. I really think that you honed in on something that I did not include in my earlier statements, but that I definitely agreed as soon as you said it, which was the idea of transmutation, that there are things that will happen to us that we don't want to happen, that we will all face trials and tragedy to a
Mhm.
degree. And whatever that degree is, there's that adage that people love to use, that there are the things that happen and then there's how we respond to them. And she's a
Right.
wonderful example of how, despite even some of the things that still haunt her, who has she become and what has she been able to accomplish? And in that, we all have an ability to rise above what happens to us, and take what happens to us and grow from it. And it's who we become in response to that that is probably one of those things that she has that so many people can identify with. And that makes engaging with her story, connecting with it, something that's possible for everyone. You have to let down your guard a little bit. You have to be willing to accept that part of yourself. And maybe that's one of the other reasons why it is that there has not been the response that I feel she deserves, and the treatment that we were discussing earlier. What I do want to make sure of, though, is to let people know a little bit about what else you're doing, because Comics Lit is a wonderful addition. But I mean, I was reminded. I loved reading through your essay before we hopped on, and then I'm reading the back of it, and I was like, "That's right." So I mentioned where I'm from, but also there's the fact that you've got Fine Cut, which is part of the Femon Collective. But
Yep.
Whether it's your comic Reburn, which I loved, I bought the series, I bought the whole package, I've got the stickers, I've got everything that goes along with it.
Thank you
I
for
was
your
there with
support, Seth. And
my
you were
pleasure.
there
It was,
with Tanya. That was amazing. I'm excited for more of that. Go ahead and sell what you were
yes,
saying.
no,
It
no,
was
no,
so
please,
awesome.
I interrupt me at your leisure, at your desire, because yeah, Medford was a wonderful opportunity to share it with so many people. And
Mhm.
I mean, as soon as Tanya or I would share the story with people, they would see, like, some people did the classic. I'll start with issue number one and see if I
Sure.
like it. But other people were like, "This is phenomenal. I'm buying the whole set.
I
Like,
mean, it's
let's just
gorgeous.
gobble it all up."
It's kind of like
It
me talking
really
about
is.
Alias. Like, even if the story is not your jam, I mean, you should read it just for Elise McCall's art and Hilary Jenkins' color and Joette Matt Gill's letters. I mean, it's a beautiful. It's an all-female team. It's a beautiful. Elise is criminally underutilized. She's so talented. Um,
Well, my hope is that the more people hear about her name, the more people consider looking into Reburn. We
Mhm.
can, counter that a little bit. And hopefully she is recognized and utilized, has an opportunity to share her skills with more and more creators, the more they become aware of her. But you've also got an award-winning feature known as Eve of Understanding. You've also got an award-winning screenplay, The Night We Met. You've got, I mean, I just saw the trailer, and
Oh yeah.
I've been keeping up with you on your newest project, right?
Yeah, that's actually a
Is
short of The Night We Met. We changed the title because there were too many The Night We Mets to hold the night. But that is a short inspired by that feature. So
which, I mean, the response has been amazing. You've got, I think, a few things left on your calendar coming up for it, correct?
yeah,
You're
we
going
got
to
a
be
bunch of
traveling.
festivals coming up. Yes. I'm not traveling. Jessica Patel, who is the director and producer. She is the one who's doing, and also she's Canada based, and we have some festivals in Canada, so it's nice because she's closer. The film was shot in Canada, actually. So I was just fortunate enough because of Jessica's and my long-standing friendship and collaboration to be. She was interested in. We showed her the script. She was interested. We sort of like we applied for some things with the feature, and then she was a Warner Brothers HBO fellow, and so she had was encouraged and was given some money to make a short, and so we talked about. Was there a short to be made of this feature script? And so I wrote a short and we made it actually like a year ago right now. And it's another really a female writer, director. There were 5 female producers, which was amazing. And a female editor, composer, costume, makeup. Like it was really amazing shoot and experience. And it's a psychological thriller / horror. It's kind of tiptoeing into horror. Rhea, we actually sat down with Rhea, Jessica, and I a few weeks ago for Femme on Film, because Rhea's seen it because we're going to be on the podcast. And Rhea, as you know, is a huge horror fan. So it was really fun talking to her about it. And she's like, no, it's absolutely a horror film, But it's one of the more like get into your skin horror films, not one of those stab horror films.
Gotcha. No. And that's an important thing to keep in mind for anybody who's like, we got blood and gore. I'm in. You're like, hold on.
It's definitely not gore.
This is more like, why is the door creaking? Do I have an unsettling feeling? Why do I feel like, there's more going on here? Why do I feel a sense of danger? Even when it hasn't revealed itself yet.
Which are the ones that I like and can tolerate, and like because I appreciate, like, say Rosemary's Baby is like one of my favorites, so it's more aligned with something like that than like Saw, for example, which I can't see.
That's okay. I
can't even see Midsummer. Like I know those movies are brilliant, but those are a little. I know they're going to be too disturbing for me. A little too much.
There's certain things that my imagination do fine without me seeing versions of them presented in film. So
get rid of. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. That I really just don't need in my repertoire or, at some quiet moment, like, oh, wow, I have a disturbing memory of that. No, I really don't need that. But I also just want to rewind for a second, because while I love the recognition you gave to the beautiful art in Rebirth and to the, director on the short, and that you're saying that with both of those, like, even if the writing wasn't great, the art would be beautiful. The writing is great. I've read Rebirth, so I can say the writing is great. I don't want to steer anyone away who's like, well, if the writing is great and the art is gorgeous, which is why I also would imagine that to hold the night, even for all the beauty you've described,
it is well written. I would agree. It is very well written.
Wonderful. All right. Yeah. So with those things, I'm going to say, come on, you don't make it into the New York Times, to Ms., to the Rumpus, or anything like that by being, well, that's not great, but she partners up with people who do really beautiful stuff. No, that's not the argument. That
I definitely wasn't trying to say that about Reburn. I didn't say the writing. I said the story. Like if you were into the story.
That's true.
So I am trying to get better at all of that. So I appreciate you calling my attention to it, like saying I did a good job too. And I do want to say also, Tanya is the absolute best person in the world to be selling Rebirth, because it looks like it's about her. And
there were quite a few comments about that. There were. Is that you on the cover? She's like, no, it's not. But it's one of the reasons why it's so easy for me to say that I love this character, and also I love that I can feel tangentially associated to her, and that's okay too. With all of that in mind, for anyone who wants to, they can follow you as by Alyson Shelton. They can check you out on Instagram. They can catch upcoming or previous episodes of Where I'm From. They can catch you on Comics in Motion, where you still have Fine Cut. And I know you appear on other stuff for Femon Collective. You were talking about Rhea. Yep. This is just, we're so grateful that we were able to get you in to this copy. And hopefully you're going to be part of future versions, volumes that we're doing. Wonderful. Yeah. I know I'm excited because I've been teasing to people, like whenever I mention the book, I'm like, look, volume 2 is already in the works. I submitted my rough draft. I'm waiting to get feedback. Volume 2 is
Same.
coming out next year. You know,
Yeah,
so
I wrote the essay a while ago. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing, I did it. I don't need to
yeah,
worry about it.
right. I can check that off. Now I'm just
Yeah,
waiting on notes and revision. And
right.
but essentially there is so much you've already done. There is much more to come. I've teased some things. I'll also include links where people can, find all that stuff in the liner notes. But for me, it's a pleasure because it's one of the first times I've had a chance to talk with you in person about that. When I was on for Where I'm From, we're talking about the poem and the
Yeah.
ideas and that. But now I get a chance to say, hey, you need to know about Alyson Shelton. I'm here to celebrate Alyson Shelton. I love what she's done. I love what she's doing. I can't wait to see more. And I really am glad that you brought up the topic that we started this call out with today, because I really feel that it's important. I feel it's something that, for all the progress that's been made, there's so much more that needs to be made. It's strange, but it seems like for all the times that we're willing to expand and do more, there's like a little bit of a retract that follows, and there needs to be a perseverance so that that doesn't happen as often, that this recognition continues, that the ability for great female-led stories, for great female creative teams to tell these stories should happen more. It only gets better when it's done more frequently, and that when it comes to cinema or all forms of storytelling, it's a benefit. It's something that makes stories better. It makes storytelling better. And if we can just keep putting that idea in people's heads to remind them that, did you love that? Don't you want more? Well, say it. Don't just say, wow, wouldn't it be great? That's just the beginning. Now, get behind those things that when they get your support, they tell anybody who's saying, well, should we? Yes, look at the support. If there's enough support there, that question will be answered, and we're going to get more of what we want, and that needs to happen. It's through that encouragement, it's through that response that people can play a part. Well, what can I do? Hey, we just told you. 1, get a copy of Comics Lit. 2, talk to all of your friends about this amazing essay. 3, follow all the great things that Alyson Shelton is doing. 4, look for other great creators who are saying these things and recognize that they haven't been hiding. It's just that we need more people to pay attention to it, and that the more that they do, we need them to talk about it. And I'm excited for the things that I'm sure are still maybe just rough drafts or ideas or projects in the works, but I know there's more coming, and I can't wait to see it. And I'm so glad I had an opportunity to have you on to talk about Comics Lit, but also to talk about what an amazing creator you are, and that the things that you are saying, I hope you continue to say, and that I know they need to be said. That was my gushing moment. Thank you, Alyson.
Thank
This
you,
was so
Seth.
much fun.
I really appreciate you having me on, and I can't match that. That was really something. Thank you for all of that. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and I know we've talked on some Zooms and things, but this is the longest conversation we've ever had, and I'm I'm just like so impressed. I think I've told Tony and Tanya this privately, but I'm just really impressed with their passion and what they have accomplished with bringing this together, getting a publisher, getting this into the world. Like, it's very inspiring and bringing us all together. And so I'm just grateful to be a part of this group of writers and creatives thinking about comics in a way that people don't usually think about them. And I think that when we reframe our relationship to comics or what comics are trying to achieve, then we take comics more seriously. And it is a serious art form, and it deserves that. So it's my pleasure to be a part of this. And thank you.
Oh my! It was truly an honor. I'm grateful to be in amazing company and to stand, shoulder to shoulder with you and everyone else who's part of this. And I'm not even going to try and follow up what you just said. That was perfect. I totally agree. They are amazing, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful to them. And I'm excited to have more of us on and
Yeah.
to get others to
Yeah.
share more. Alyson, thank you for being here,
Thank
for
you, Seth.
talking about your essay with me. Until next time, I'm going to hit the end record now, where we are going to talk like regular human beings, not being observed by a camera or otherwise. And I've told you, look out for Alyson Shelton. I'll share the ways in the notes, and tell me what you think. Tell her what you think. We're not hiding from you.